What's happening, people, and welcome back to youtube.com/CubCamTV for another exclusive interview that we are bringing you here on the channel. I am very, very excited to be getting into this one. As you know, we love getting into our sort of international situations. We love talking to people and producers and vocalists from all around the world, and today we've got a very exciting one indeed. We are heading over to New York City, obviously one of the capitals of music culture worldwide, and we are talking to the fabulous collective that is Preethevibes. How are we doing, guys? We all good?
We're good, man. Thanks for having us.
Pretty good.
Yes. It's really good to get you guys on, man. Obviously, we had a bit of a feature with you guys on the Pull Up Show recently with a wicked new tune, My 111. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on because that's obviously how we started talking and how this interview was actually set up. I want to kind of talk first of all about things your end because it looks like you're very busy, you're very active in what you're doing. Just how are things your end to kick things off?
So things are pretty great. It's cold as hell in New York right now, but we're making it work. We're kind of hibernating in the studio, actually. So we kind of calmed down on the live music scene, and we just been working on music behind the scenes, staying active in that manner.
Wicked. I mean, that's the thing. I think when winter time for the music industry is always quiet unless you're pumping out 100 Christmas songs. It's always more of a kind of relaxed time period. So I feel this is a good time to actually be in the studio, just kind of sitting down, going, where can we take things next? Obviously, with yourselves, there are quite a few of you involved in the collective. How did you all originally form as a collective? Because I always find these stories fascinating about how musicians who may not necessarily have always been on the same directive path end up working as a collective together. So how did you guys first all kind of form as a group?
So this started with us, I'm going to say 2007.
Okay.
So King Lovin, who's on our call, he's my best friend. We've been best friends since 4th grade, 10 years old. I met the other guys. I met Para and Just Q when I was 18, when I started college. So around the age of 17, me and King Lovin, we bonded over music. We started together, getting into the dancehall, getting into collecting rhythms, and we actually started out DJing before actually making music. We were DJing little family barbecues, that kind of thing, and that kind of led to us figuring out that we could actually record music ourselves and use the same DJ equipment to make music. So we used that as an opportunity to experiment. So when I went to college and I met Just Q and Para, I went to LIU. WLIU is a radio station in Brooklyn. Big up WLIU Brooklyn Radio. That's where I met Just Q and Para. They had a recording studio, and that's where we learned how to do things on a more professional level. So the four of us got together from there, and we haven't stopped since. So we met together, became friends through music, bonded through music, and we learned the craft together as the years went. So we've been doing this, technically, we've been doing this for, I want to say, almost 15 years together.
Wow, that's crazy. It's crazy to kind of hear, again, that, I suppose, progression as a group, kind of being together for so long and kind of pushing in the same kind of direction. Obviously, you mentioned there you started off, I suppose, in more of a kind of dancehall world. I suppose, what was that like? Again, we're based in the UK, so hearing about, I suppose, dancehall in New York in about 15 years ago, that seems like such a crazy thing to imagine. And obviously, you guys were there living it. Like, what was that like as a sound, as a kind of energy in the place?
So dancehall music. So me and King Lovin, we're from the Uptown Bronx, and I don't know if you know anything about New York and the Bronx. Uptown Bronx is primarily Caribbean.
Okay.
Caribbean, a mix of not just Jamaican but Antiguan. So many people from the Caribbean. So it's kind of like living in the Caribbean, just a cold version. And basically, there were a lot of dancehall sounds. King Lovin, we remember, what was the name of that sound? Your cousin's sound.
Oh, Messenger
sound. Messenger sound was a big sound uptown. I'm sure you heard of Platinum Kids. These are the kind of sounds that came from Uptown Bronx. So occasionally you have some of the big dancehall acts coming to New York, coming to the Bronx, and then you blend that with what was going on in Brooklyn. Just Q's from Brooklyn. So this is a heavy culture, but what I can say is that it wasn't like a native, I'm from New York kind of thing. It was more of a Caribbean artists coming to New York and people knowing these artists from the Caribbean. So we saw that as a space to grow ourselves, because we weren't really understanding that any other artists were actually from New York, or actually grew up or living in America, that decided to take on the dancehall craft. But the dancehall was really what you remember, Pasa Pasa and Weddy Wednesdays and all that. Even though we weren't in Jamaica, we were passing around those DVDs and imitating those things in the dance halls and all the parties uptown Bronx anyway. So it was kind of like still being in the Caribbean.
That's
like
really
I said, a
cool.
cold version of being in the Caribbean. Yeah,
it's such a cool thing to hear, because obviously that just feels like such a moment to be a part of, that sort of little bracket of history. And obviously dancehall's gone on to become, on a global level, realistically one of the biggest genres of the world, if not one of the most influential genres in the world. And it's cool to kind of think back in the day, you guys have played a part in that. You've played a part in that phenomenon of growing that sound to becoming the global sensation that it has become. It's an interesting thing to kind of talk about, because obviously the newer single steers in a slightly different direction from you guys, going down more of a kind of Afrobeats influenced route. Like, again, I want to ask the same question. Being based in New York now, how is that Afrobeats sort of approach kind of going down in New York at the moment? Because I feel that's a sound that is following a similar trajectory on a global scale.
So I think the best way to put this, or the best way to communicate this, is our relationship with Para. Because like I said, so just to clarify, now King Lovin', he's Guyanese. Just Q's not on the call with us, but Just Q, he's Jamaican, and my family's from Montserrat. So the three of us are from the Caribbean. We met Para in 2007, 2008, and he's Ghanaian, and there's a big Ghanaian Nigerian community also in the Bronx. So ironically, around 2010, 2011, this is when I first learned about Burna Boy. This is when I first learned about Wizkid. This is before these guys really blew up and really became the phenomenons that they are internationally. But what we noticed was that there were a lot of sounds in a lot of these early Afrobeat, African genre music that was used in dancehall. A lot of similar rhythms that were used in dancehall were used in Afrobeats.
Of course.
And we saw those similarities early. And what we noticed was that even though this wasn't a music that a lot of people were doing, at least not in New York at the time, we saw that as an open opportunity to get involved, because we have an African producer in our midst that is actually able to emulate those sounds and bring those sounds from his home and his culture into what we already are doing, and kind of blend that sound already. And I mentioned Burna Boy, but Burna Boy was one of the few people who we saw doing something similar to as what we desired to do, in terms of take those dancehall elements and complement the Afrobeat meditation and put them together in a nice, neatly packaged sandwich. But we wanted to take it a step further. So, you know, it still isn't as big in 2010, 2011, 2012. Obviously, it's everywhere now, but we didn't see it that strongly in our communities. But we thought that was a great thing, because we felt as though we struck gold when everybody was still on silver.
Uh-huh.
That's a really cool way of putting it as well, because it's following it obviously again from an international point of view. It's so interesting to see how sounds just kind of spread, and they just kind of move into different avenues, they move into different areas, and the next thing you know, the artists that are kind of the sort of those propellers for that genre are suddenly selling out Madison Square Gardens, and are suddenly touring and selling out France and Germany, and it's such an interesting thing to kind of watch, I suppose. Like, so I suppose just actually on a more specific level, like for I suppose the sounds you're involved in now, like very specifically now, what would you sort of describe your evolution as in today's sense? Like, what would you put your, I suppose, if there was a primary genre, what would you describe it as?
So the best way I would put it, and when people ask me what's Preethevibes sound, the best way I would put it. So 2 subgenres, Afro dancehall, obviously that speaks for itself, and something that we like, island trap. And we have a couple of songs that haven't hit the scene as yet that we'll introduce to the world, hopefully in 2023, that take that contemporary hip hop vibe and fuse it with what we've already done with Afrobeats and dancehall.
That sounds super exciting, man. That sounds really exciting.
So
Again,
it's different.
I was gonna say, yeah, it sounds so exciting because it's again you guys pushing sound forward, and having spoken to you already, it seems like that's something that's been a prominent part of your kind of collective attitude, has been that idea of we're gonna find the next thing that's happening and we're gonna push it, but then we're gonna find the next thing and then push it, and we're gonna find the next thing and push it. So it's really cool to see how those things have come together, and now you're even moving forward already, even though as I said before, as you were saying, it still hasn't got to the pinnacle. I feel with Afrobeats, you're already moving onto something different, which is such an exciting thing to see. I mean, I want to talk about the single. Obviously, that's the kind of main reason we're here, and obviously that goes by the name My 111 with Onyi Awani. I want to know, first of all, how the link-up came together. And obviously, you guys being a kind of collective doing a lot of different things, how do you first start speaking to artists like Onyi?
So Oni specifically, another college connection. So before we became Preethevibes, back when me and Para first met, we had a little thing going on where I was the writer and he was the producer, and we were gonna be a duo. It was called Para and the Vibes. And this is like a precursor to Preethevibes. But basically the formula was a female's voice, any voice, but primarily a woman's voice, because for some reason I had a woman's voice in my head constantly when I was writing songs, and Paris production. And Oni happened to be one of those really driven, enthusiastic, and ambitious artists that we came across, and had an amazing voice, but wasn't necessarily big on sound as we were. She kind of was in the midst of the R&B flavor, and from the minute that we met her and heard her voice, we knew that she had something special, and she had something that we felt that was missing from our music. So it was as simple as us inviting her to the studio after meeting her a couple of times through our mutual friends, and us just getting busy. She's a really interesting as well as talented soul. I mean, as soon as we got in the room together, I got a keyboard in my studio. She jumps on the keyboard. I have a guitar in my studio. She picked up the guitar, starts moving right away. So the kind of music that we were making, it was really easy for her to pick up the ball and keep it moving, because she's Nigerian. So this is something that she's growing up with in her household as well. So the vibration was very authentic, very genuine, and it was, I like to say, it was meant to be.
I mean, you can hear that natural synergy on the tune itself. I mean, obviously, it's always kind of cool, I suppose, to move into new kind of areas and expand the sound. Like, how have you, I suppose, found the response both locally and internationally to this one from your points of view? Like, how have people been actually getting, like, how have people been feeling it, essentially?
So the funny thing about My 111 is it's not even my favorite song, but we've got such positive responses from people about this song, with people even telling us this is, in their opinion, their favorite song that we've done so far. Definitely very positive. Obviously, we're still doing our best to get the music out to the masses, and it's taken some time, but so far we've got such great responses, such great positive feedback. People love the guitar opening. They love Uni's voice, and they serve that question: what's My 111? What does that mean? So this mysterious aspect to it.
It's a really cool tune. I feel it's a really cool tune in regards to how kind of abstract it is in a lot of ways. Obviously, there are kind of classic Afrobeats elements in there, but again, it has this kind of swirly overall texture to it that just gives it this unique feel that I really enjoyed playing it on radio first of all, but also just kind of sitting and listening to it and kind of I suppose understanding the overall composition of the tune. Like, how long did it actually take to put together? You mentioned that it was a very kind of, I suppose, natural kind of process. But like, how long did it actually take to put together as a tune?
It is. Yeah. So the funny thing about it is, this is probably the 4th or 5th song that we did with Uni. After working with somebody like her, with a voice like hers, their voice gets stuck in my head. Her voice is stuck in my head for months. So when I heard the composition was actually done by a producer from France named Jonathan Mudayi. And he's somebody that we've been working with closely as well. And it started with me hearing the track. He actually sent me the track because he had heard some previous songs that we did on his previous productions. And he felt that it was something that I should hear. So immediately I started writing with her voice in mind. As far as inviting her into the studio, it took us less than 2 hours, probably an hour and a half to record the entire song. Now, here's the thing. The actual post-production of the song is what took more time. What you're hearing, because we went back and forth a lot. I mean, I could show you the history of the back and forth of us emailing each other the drafts. But basically, what you're hearing is not the key that the song was recorded in. If you listen real closely, you can hear, especially on the second verse, that the song was artificially transposed a couple of semitones higher than the original recording. So what you're hearing is Uni actually singing at a lower register than what she's inclined to sing at.
That's nuts. And that is nuts.
Yeah. So we actually rehearsed the song together to sing it live. Find a proper key to sing it in, because the key that the song that you hear is in is much higher than my natural register, and the key that you hear the song in is her natural register. So it was actually more difficult for her to record because she recorded at a lower register. She has a really high, a higher tone, a higher register voice naturally. So when I asked her to record it, it was much lower than what she's used to speaking and singing in. So that's the craziest thing about this song. I actually forget that the song was not recorded in that register.
Yeah, I mean, again, the first time I heard it, I'm gonna listen back to it now and hear it completely differently. now you said that, but that's such a crazy thing that it's like that you've been able to do that and it not, to be honest, on a very basic level, not sound odd. Because normally when you are transposing stuff up and down, there is a real kind of natural, kind of electric feel to things. Like it naturally just sounds a little bit like different. But at no point did that even enter my head listening to it that's what had happened.
Yeah, and also
and
the
every
mixing,
instrument. Yeah,
the mixing took some time as well because we went back and forth with the kick and the bass. Remember that, Emil?
That kick was a problem.
Yeah,
because once we transpose percussion, it kind of loses the that it originally had because it was recorded in that. It wasn't meant to be recorded in that transposition. So for the most part,
breaking up.
And it taught us a lot about, hey, maybe we should have thought this through before we recorded. But I think that the journey to getting the sound we got was better than if we actually recorded in that register, because you kind of feel a lot more in control when you change things drastically like that after accepting the song because I didn't want to have to call her back to the studio or re-record the song.
Of course. Especially when you've got the takes you're happy with as well, and you're like, this is it. It's just not. It just needs that little transposition or that little kind of change. That's such an interesting story to hear about this tune, because I remember listening to it and thinking this is one of the most sort of natural kind of sweeping approaches I've heard. And then oh no, it's actually been transposed and all these other things have happened and there's so much back and forth on it. I find that so crazy, man. And again, it's a kind of testament, I suppose, to that level of creativity that comes potentially off the back of always trying to kind of move sound forward. That's something that a lot of people wouldn't have thought to done. They'd have gone, okay, we'll push it back 6 months, find the time to record it again, and then we'll find a way of doing it differently. But I get such an enjoyment out of the fact that you went, no, let's just do it. Let's just do it the techie way. I love that. I think that's so cool to hear. Like, I mean, I won't keep you for too much longer because we've already kept you for way longer than I said I would. But I mean, I suppose moving forward for obviously 2023, you've mentioned kind of moving into a sort of new space genre-wise. There being some sort of new sounds you're waiting to unleash. How are you feeling about 2023 as a collective?
2023 is going to be our year. We have spent so much time researching, practicing, rehearsing, recording, brainstorming. We've been doing everything under the sun that you could think of that an upcoming struggling artist is doing or could do. So I have a strong feeling that we're going to see some of the results that we like to see from putting everything into our passion. 2023 is going to be a great year for Preethevibes. I have a strong feeling of it.
Amazing. Well, guys, I've got to say, it's been great getting you on the line, and obviously hearing the stories and I suppose that sort of back catalogue of information that has surrounded your sound and has kind of driven you to the place you are today. That's the sort of thing that I always get excited about hearing about the history and things like that. So I want to say thank you, first of all, for jumping on the line and sharing all of that with us today. Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
for having us.
Having us, for real, man. We appreciate this.
Each and every time, guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes in 2023. You can guarantee we're going to be sat here watching on the channel. Make sure, people, you are following everything that Preethevibes are doing on socials. What's the best place for people to find you, I suppose, on social media platforms and things like that?
Preethevibes.com, every social media platform you could think of, every music platform you could think of. Preethevibes, Preethevibes.
Love it. I love it when it's all the same. It makes life so much easier. But there we go. Thank you for watching, guys. Make sure you are hitting that subscribe button and getting involved in the channel as well. And we shall catch you all next time. Have a fantastic rest of your day and peace.
Sounding so good right now. But they're sounding a bright and
Yes, it's Kovu. Stay locked. Hooktown TV.
Your boy Slim's whole fit right here, and you're locked on to the best breakfast with man like Cole.
Yo, this is Aaron Glitch, and you're tuning to the sounds of Kovu right now. You already know the thing. Bad boy selector. Alright, let's go.